What's up YouTube? Maverick Green here, and today we are going to go over my Reboot Hit leader deck. The main focus on it is the earthlings and all that fun kind of stuff. We've got some interesting tech in there that no one else has in it, and with it you can spam the board really big. It has some decent matchups against yellow and blue even. Green is still some trouble here and there, but that's to be expected for the most part with Swarm. Right now we don't have many decks that have, or Earthlings I should say, that have Barrier that's just a 2-drop that we can play easily in this deck. So let's go ahead and get started in going over it, because I think this is a pretty fun deck to have and just to play itself. So here we are with the leader of the deck. As you can see, he's pretty awesome on the back side. The front side, I wish he was a little bit better, because I hate how it always has to be at a leader to get any of his good effects on the front side. Because being able to draw one is a must these days. That 5,000 power is just an awesome bonus to have. Then you awaken at 4 less life, and then you can draw one and untap one, which gives you a lot of help overall. So, as you can see on the back, you swing, you draw a card, and the card gains 5,000 power, and you play a skillless battle card from your drop that is 2 or less. And then you got the active main battle that is a lifesaver. Choose one card in your hand, place it in the drop area, choose up to one of your opponent's battle cards with double strike, critical, or blocker, and KO it. This can get you out of so many holes. It's unreal and amazing. So first up, we'll go over the negates. First, we've got 3 topos here. As you can see, topos are just staples these days for red, because they're just so much value, as you can see. For those that don't know what topo does, when your opponent swings, you go ahead, activate the counter attack, you choose one card to pitch it, it negates the attack, and you play this card. It has a permanent that the energy cost is reduced by 2 when it's your opponent's turn. And for his auto, which is a main part that people like in this, when this is played, for the duration of the turn, your opponent can't attack unless they choose 2 cards from their hand and place them in the drop area each time. It's so much help when you're going against other Swarm decks and you can get this out on the board, especially late game with this, because with how this engine is modified for this deck, you end up not using too much energy, and that ends up being valuable in the long run when games get late and you just have all this extra energy and plenty of defense for it. So then after that, we have what's a staple for Unison decks. We've got 4 Wolf-Fang Fists here. It just counterattack if your leader is mono red, which our leader is. Choose up to one of the attacking battle cards or leader cards, ignoring barrier, and it gets minus 15,000 power for the battle. And the permanent, if you have a red Unison in play, you can activate this for free, which is so amazing to be able to do it. It can get you out of a lot of holes, and it can give you a fighting chance. So that's the counter plays we play in there, just 7 of them. Some of my decks play a lot more, so when I say just 7, that's something to be said. For our counter plays in this deck, we play 3 Yamcha's Merciless Barrage. He only can activate on counter window 2 to at least minus 15 the card that's being played and one other card. But you can still play it in counter window 1, you'll just snag 2 things that's already on board. So, he's pretty okay. He could be better, because green has Frieza, which is just amazing, and blue has Trunks, which is also amazing, because you bounce it back to their hand or you blow it up. Then yellow has Crusher Ball, but free, and a blocker, but we play him mainly because you can play him for free. He's a Earthling only card, and he's useful for what we're trying to do in the deck overall. So next, we've got our super combos, because we need to get those right out of the way. We've got 4 of the Raditz super combos. Late in the game, he's definitely useful to fix your hand when you need to slap something in your deck and try to draw what you need to. All your energy has to be red. Bottom 1, draw 2, 10,000k. He's just good in general. So now we're getting to the main part of the deck. And that is this Unison here. He's the most important Unison for this deck. You see, this card can't attack, which sucks, but his +1 is the one we focus on. Obviously, we can't do his -3 because our leader is an alien, not an earthling. But active main, draw 1 card. Choose 1 card in your hand, place it on the bottom of the deck, and then choose up to 1 red earthling only battle card with an energy cost of 2 in your hand and play it. And this is the card that will give you all your value, because you can play almost any card in your deck with this 1 card. Him and Hit, just playing free stuff, is just value for you all the time. We'll go ahead and leave him up here because we'll more than likely be talking about him a lot. So our first set of cards will be these Everybody's Pal Yamchas. He's good to play off of that later, because when he attacks, you look up to 3 cards from the top of your deck, choose up to 1 earthling card among them, and add it to your hand, then shuffle your deck. He'll let you fill your hand up more. He's a 15k, 5,000 combo power. Just a lot of utility out of him, for sure. Next up, we've got the Innocent Princess Chi-Chi. We only run 2 of her because we can play her for free off the leader if we absolutely have to. I mean, off the Unison, not the leader. But we don't want to do that because we can just play her for free overall. Basically, the turn you play Shinron, you go, do the +1, and you play Everybody's Pal Yamcha, and boom, you've got her for free. So next up, we've got this beautiful card. This is another card that's just automatically a staple in any Earthlings deck. You've got Bulma, the bunny girl. When it comes to her, she's just so much utility for this. Like, you could play her off of him if you really need to, and then when one of your guys blow up, which will be 90% of your deck, because your opponents don't want you to keep a big board overall, so this is definitely going to be one of the important stuff to play more stuff. Basically, she's unique with a blocker skill. When one of your red earthling cards, other than a Bulma card, is removed from the battle area by an opponent's skill, you may play this card from your hand. If you do, play up to 1 red earthling only battle card with an energy cost of 4 or less from your drop area. So basically, you have access to all of your deck with this card. You can basically go and swing with him. Chances are if you're facing green, they're going to shocking deathball him, so he's going to just die. So then you play Bulma from your hand, you bring him right back, and swing again, and you draw 2 cards off of him if you end up hitting off of his top 3, which in this deck, 99% of the time you'll hit off of it, no problem. Next up, another part of this deck that's pretty good, we've got 3 of him. He'll help you get your skills out fast if you don't have them, and with them, you just get to do so much. He's a good defensive card, and he's going to be really good in one of the decks coming up in set 12. With this, he's unique. Auto, if it's your opponent's turn at the end of a battle where this card is used in a combo, play up to 1 skillless battle card with an energy cost of 2 or less from your deck or drop area. Shuffle your deck if you look through it, and you can't activate the auto skill on copies of this card for the turn. Then active main for 1 energy, send 1 skillless battle card from your drop area to your warp and play this card from hand. So basically, he's pretty good overall because he's defensive if you really need to, keep your life, and put more bodies on board. Or you can just use him and just play him for one with the active main, because chances are you're probably going to have skillless in your drop, whether you want to or not, because they're going to blow up stuff left and right. Your leader, you're going to pitch stuff. He's just good utility overall. Defense, playing other cards, playing himself. He does so much. So speaking of skillless, here comes some pretty good tech that we use in this deck. Well, not tech, but it's earthlings, and we need all the earthlings we can get. We got 4 skillless Yamchas in here. 20k 2-drop. Play it off of him. Play it off of her. Play it off of Shinron GT. Play it off your leader. You've got all these cards that just let you play this one card off of for free, or 1 energy, and you're going to have a lot of energy overall. As long as you got your Unison on board and established, you're going to be able to keep your energy up for defense, or use it to draw more cards, which we'll go over with the drawing aspect here towards the end of the deck. So next, after the skillless Yamchas, we've got 4 Master Roshis here that are skillless. That came from the newest draft box 6. And, well, he's skillless, earthling only, so once again, off of him, her, him, and him, this one card can be played off of everything in your deck and just go off super well. So then, in this deck, there are times you do not have cards that in your hand, so you will try to make that up with this guy. He's an old card, but he's definitely a goodie in my heart. He's one of the good old cards. He's double strike, 25k. If you have 3 or less cards besides this card in your hand, reduce the energy cost of this card in your hand or battle area by 4. So he's a 2-drop. He won't be able to be played off of any of them, sadly, because he's not earthling only. He's also a Saiyan. When it comes to him, his auto, when this card KOs your opponent's battle card, inflict 2 damage to your opponent. So this is really good if you're going against Go tanks and you already baited out their Frieza, assuming you baited out the Frieza with him, and you've probably played her off of them playing the Frieza to blow up one of your guys to fill your board back up. You play this and swing at their ghost token or whatever they have and generally try to kill it, because they're going to not want to take 2 damage off of losing a battle card due to this guy. He can be played around with Frieza and Trunks, but a lot of cards can these days, and quite frankly, that's just how it's going to be, at least until this block's over, I'd assume. Then we will probably see the counterplays getting hit, maybe even dormant, which is also something that can hit this and most of your deck in this so far. So that's the end of that tech of the deck. The other touches we put into this deck are 2 Master Roshi Unisons. We put them in there so that way we still have something to play if we do not see the Shinrons, because with him, at the very least, when your leader card is red and your opponent's life is 5 or more, when this card is played, deal 1 damage to your opponent. And then active main, +1. This card gains 5,000 power for the turn, and then -4. This card gains 15,000 power and double strike for the turn. So, like, overall, he's decent. You can switch him with Jiren and probably do just as well, but he costs 2, so you're not going to be in too bad of shape, and you can get him on board as soon as possible, just like him, overall, and start getting some value out of him. He becomes a 20k beat stick every turn to you -4. Then he's a 30 double strike beat stick. So then, say we're going against a deck that just doesn't want to die, or, well, give us damage. We'll play 4 of him to awaken ourselves. Most of you know this card by now. 4 of them. Basically, you swing with it, you take a life, and it becomes a 15k crit at your opponent. This is just good for early pressure, getting cards in your hand through his effect, and helping yourself self-awaken. This is the only self-awakening I have in this deck. Currently, it can be changed around. There's some aspects I would change in this deck overall. Next up, we've got 2 Goku Apes. A lot of people don't have these cards, but they've gotten cheaper overall now. They're probably like 20 bucks a piece, 30 a piece. I got these back when they were tinned, right before they spiked up. That was amazing, and it helps sometimes. So like I said, with this deck, you have a lot of energy up most of the time if everything's going your way, and your hand's being depleted because you're just playing so much for free. So then you'll go ahead and do this. You just warp him from your drop and draw 2. And if you don't need him and you're going against something aggro and you've got this guy on board, just bottom him and you don't have to worry about it. You basically can filter him out of your hand and back into the deck, so that way you can go and try to find stuff you need instead of having him if you can't play him justifiably in your matchup you're in, like Red Broly. You don't want to tap 2 to play this because you could die if you do it too early. You want to try to get as much defense as you can for that. And finally, we got the secret rare for it. We chose Frieza. A lot of people would probably choose Gogeta overall, but Gogeta will just stop you from swarming, and that'll hurt in the long run because you just start slowly dying and losing resources overall. And this guy's pretty good. He's quad strike. You can only have one of them in there with ultimate. Then your permanents in this, when your life is 2 or less, reduce the energy cost of this card by 3. Auto, when you play this card, your opponent reveals their hand. Choose up to one of your opponent's choose one card from your opponent's hand and place it in their drop area. Then choose all of your opponent's battle cards with 40k power or less, ignoring barrier and KOing it. Basically, you get this on the board, you're probably going to win that turn overall. Yeah, it's just so much good value off of this one card once you get it on board. And it doesn't get Trunks counterplayed. If it does, you're probably going to die because you probably tapped out to play it. So next up, we've got my side deck. This side deck is somewhat rough overall, not going to lie, but I don't do side decking too often at locals. But for my side deck right now, I've got an extra one of him in there because you never know when you just need to try to get the board filled as soon as possible. Then I've got 2 Jirens, just in case I don't want to have the Master Roshis in there and I already know it's going to be a really long game. I'm just going to put him in there because he's just a whole bunch of value overall. And he can just do so much for you. Next up, 2 more of her, just in case you need more defense. And then, say you need to put pedal to the metal, you've got 4 of him in here. So that way, because he's just good overall, because when you play him, or I should say, his active main, if your leader card is red and you have 3 or more non-token battle cards in play this card from your hand and it gains crit for the turn. Basically, he's free value overall. If you've flooded your board and your opponent has not started to try to deal with it, you can take them down because ideally, if you're flipped on your backside, you're playing 2 cards every turn if everything's going good and you have the cards in your hand. Then chances are at least one of those cards your previous turn's still going to be there, so you've got 3 on board. You put him on board for free. Shazam. You basically are in good shape. I've thought about main decking him, which I very well might. Then, next up, one of my favorite cards to play with Bulma is Deadly Defender Krillin. I just love his value from him. A lot of people don't play deadly defenders these days. Barrier. And then permanent, during your opponent's turn, if your leader card is red, and this card is in rest mode, your opponent can't attack your leader card, and this card gets minus 5,000 for the turn. Basically, you play him with Bulma, or tap 3 if you really have to. But you play him with Bulma, and you go and swing, and he's just there on the board. When I was playing this at another locals one time, and I used Bulma to play him, I was going against an OG Green Broly player, and they laughed at the fact that I ran this and said he was dumb and that I should have never ran him in there. Well, guess which guy got me the game because he could not deal with him with Barrier. So like I said, he's clutch at times. And speaking of clutch, if you've got him in there, doesn't hurt to put a little bit of that in there. 2 of Ultimate Blow. It's counterplay. Choose up to one of your battle cards. It gains 10,000 power and revenge for the turn. So now, with this card, even your blockers, but more than likely him, if I'm putting this in, will now be a 25k barrier with revenge. It's probably going to end the turn because unless they dump hand to get through him with the leader or Unison, they're not going to be getting through him, or they're going to be losing cards in the process that they may not want to lose to get to it. Next up, we've got a one of Yamcha the Desert Hyena. He's pretty good. I've thought about main decking him too. Basically with him, if your leader card is red, he gains 10,000, so he's a 30k natural. Auto, once per turn during a battle where this card is attacking, when your opponent activates a counter skill, switch this card to active mode. So swing, they negate, you untap and swing again. And then active or auto, once per turn, when this card KOs an opponent's battle card, switch this card to active mode, and it gets 10,000 power and triple strike for the turn. So you can possibly attack 3 times with this if they don't pay attention. He's pretty good overall. I've thought about maining him like I said. You can play him off of Bulma, which is ideally what you want to do if you're playing him. That's why he's a one of. And then last but not least, the card that so many people consider a secret rare and one of the best cards in the game, you got Fu, Shrouded in Mystery. He's essentially a game ender, because when you play him, your opponent's Unisons are dead, their battle cards are dead, everything's just combo power, Dormant dies, Frieza counterplay can't deal with them, you just murder them, and with him, you play him, and you go for game. Because Overwhelm 10, which you're going to have late game anyways, with 6 energy, Double Strike, and then when you play this card with using Overwhelm, your opponent can't activate skills on cards other than their leader card until the beginning of your turn, next turn. So basically, even on their turn, their whole deck's shut off. And there's nothing you have to worry about overall. So, overall, this deck, you focus on swarming the board with as much free value as you can, and using your energy for defense, or playing the one-drop trunks to take life that you need to, and just keep your guard up. Overall, this deck's biggest weakness is Dormant and Frieza, because that can just, one turn, you'd lose 2 guys there instantly, and it could feel bad if you don't have a Bulma in your hand, because when I've gone against starter deck Frieza, which you've seen his deck, David's deck, in the video before this, you can see that Frieza and Dormant, especially when it gets looped over and over, is just a lot of trouble to deal with. Because they'll Dormant you, you lose a 2-drop, and then they Frieza counterplay you, next turn, they do it all again. And you just slowly get depleted if they just deal with your board fast enough, or if they just put main focus on your Unison, which ideally you want to do in this game. You gotta kill the Unison as fast as you can if you can afford to. But I hope you enjoyed this video. This is a deck that I love to play a lot. It's so much fun to play. So let me know what you think of this list. If you have suggestions for this list, let me know down in the comments below. And thanks for watching.